Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to sift through the data, pull out the key stuff, and, well, make sense of complex topics quickly. Today, we're looking into something that might sound a bit niche, the global flexographic printing inks market, but, it's actually fundamental, touches so many things. Yeah, you probably don't think about ink much, but it's everywhere. So our mission here is to unpack the main trends, find those maybe surprising growth areas, and look at the key regional differences, all from this detailed cognitive market research data. By the end, you'll have a really solid handle on this industry, fast. Okay, let's unpack this. But hang on, before we jump into all the figures, maybe just a quick refresher. For anyone not totally immersed in inks, what are flexographic inks mainly used for? Like, where do we bump into them day to day?
Oh, absolutely. Good point. Think about almost any flexible packaging. Plastic bags, those labels on bottles, sticky tapes, even cardboard boxes, the corrugated kind. A lot of newspapers used it too, magazines sometimes. Flexography is just a really versatile, cost-effective way to print high volumes. That's why these inks are, well, everywhere in consumer goods and packaging. And just to give you that big picture number to start, in 2021, the global market pulled in just over $8 billion, 828.19 million, actually.
8 billion, okay.
And it's definitely not standing still. The projections show really consistent growth, compounding year on year. We're seeing it hitting nearly $9.5 billion by 2025.
Right.
And then pushing up significantly to over $13 billion by 2033. That reflects a pretty healthy compound annual growth rate, CAGR, of 4.1% for the whole market.
Okay, 4.1%. Doesn't sound huge maybe, but consistently.
Exactly. It might sound modest, but steady compounding like that year after year, it really adds up. I mean, perspective-wise, over a decade, you're looking at the market potentially growing by almost 50%.
That is striking. That consistent foundational growth, it really tells you this isn't some, flash in the pan trend. It's a core industry, just keeps ticking upwards. Yeah. Okay, so let's pivot then from that global view to how it looks region by region, because that's where you really see the different stories, right? Let's start with let's call them the more mature markets.
Precisely. Yeah, let's kick off with North America. So
Yeah.
that market was valued at just over $2.7 billion back in 2021. Projections have it growing to over $3.1 billion by 2025, and then reaching nearly $4.2 billion by 2033. So it's moving along at a steady 3.75% CAGR.
Okay, steady.
And if you look closer within North America, the U.S., unsurprisingly, holds the biggest slice. Around $2.2 billion in 2021, grown to over $3.3 billion by 2033. That's a 3.52% CAGR. But Canada is showing solid growth too, from about $262 million up to nearly $440 million by 2033. That's a 4.44% CAGR, so a bit faster there.
Right.
What's quite interesting in North America, though, is Mexico. It's projected to have the region's highest CAGR. We're talking 4.89%, climbing from around $238 million to nearly $430 million by 2033.
Wow, nearly 5%.
Yeah, it suggests maybe a significant build-out of manufacturing or, consumer markets happening down there.
That is quite a trajectory for Mexico. Okay, let's hop across the Atlantic. Europe, how does it compare?
So Europe stood at roughly $2.3 billion in 2021.
Okay.
And the estimate is for it to reach just over $3.5 billion by 2033. That puts its CAGR at 3.57%. Pretty similar overall rate to the U.S., actually.
Right, very close.
And within Europe, you've got some strong individual countries. Germany, for instance,
Right.
Nearly $585 million in 2021, forecast to hit over $900 million by 2033. That's a solid 3.87% CAGR.
Which makes sense for Germany with their manufacturing base.
Exactly. That often ties in with their strong manufacturing, their export focus.
Right.
They rely heavily on efficient packaging. The UK is also a major player. It's growing from about $420 million in 2021 to nearly $700 million by 2033. That's a strong 4.24% CAGR.
Also strong.
Then you've got other notable ones. France, about 3.4% CAGR. Italy, a bit more modest, 2.85%. Maybe reflects a different kind of industrial setup there. Russia's around 2.67%. Spain's looking at 3.3%. Sweden, a bit lower, 2.5%. Denmark, 3.18%. Switzerland's projected for 3.1%. Luxembourg, almost 4%, actually. And then you have this rest of Europe category.
Oh, yes.
And that's showing quite robust growth, 4.66% CAGR.
Interesting. The rest of it is higher than many of the big names.
It is. What's kind of fascinating here is just how consistent the growth is across
Yeah.
these, established markets, even with those different rates between countries. It just shows this deep ongoing demand. Suggests that even in mature economies, flexographic printing is still crucial,
Wow.
for evolving packaging, industrial needs, all that.
Okay, so we've got this picture of steady foundational growth, globally and also in these mature markets like North America and Europe. But where's the really explosive stuff happening? The game-changing opportunities. Let's shift to the regions that are really putting the foot down. Here's where it gets really interesting.
Indeed. Yeah, this is where the numbers jump. Asia Pacific, definitely a major growth hub. It was valued at over $1.6 billion in 2021, projected to hit nearly $2.8 billion by 2033. That's expanding at a strong 4.55% CAGR overall for the region.
Higher than North America or Europe, then?
Definitely. And within APAC, well, China's leading the charge. No surprise there, maybe. Nearly $550 million in 2021 with a 4.89% CAGR. Huge manufacturing, huge consumer base.
Right.
But you really need to keep an eye on India. It's showing really impressive momentum. A 5.46% CAGR, going from roughly $188 million in 2021 to over $360 million by 2033.
Wow, 5.5% almost.
Yeah, that often mirrors things like, rapid urbanization, expanding middle class, more demand for packaged goods, and then there's Taiwan. It actually boasts the region's highest CAGR, an impressive 5.84%.
Higher still.
Yeah, nearly doubling from about 44 million to over 89 million by 2033. That's likely fueled by, its high-tech manufacturing, its export focus.
Makes sense.
We also see solid growth from others. Japan's at 4.2% CAGR, South Korea 3.78%, Australia 3.9%, Singapore 4.7%, Southeast Asia as a whole almost 5%. And then again, this rest of APAC category, estimated at a whopping 7.5% CAGR.
7.5%. So broad-based growth across many smaller or developing economies there, too.
Exactly. Indicates really wide expansion across diverse economies in that region.
Okay, so Asia-Pacific is strong, clearly a growth engine. But then the data you showed me on Africa, an 8.3% CAGR? That's astounding. What's driving that level of acceleration?
It really is impressive, isn't it? Africa's figures position it as, well, the fastest growing region globally for these inks. Their sales revenue was about $257 million back in 2021.
Okay.
And it's projected to just shoot up to over $760 million by 2033.
Huge jump.
That kind of exponential growth, it strongly suggests significant industrialization happening, rising consumer demand, maybe more local manufacturing taking over from imports.
It's multiple factors, probably.
And if we drill down a bit, Nigeria shows a strong 7.98% CAGR, which, makes sense with its large and growing population, but it's South Africa that really jumps out. It marks the highest regional CAGR of all. 9.14%.
Over 9%.
Incredible, isn't it? Growing from about 92 million in 2021 to a projected 294 million by 2033. That points to a pretty robust manufacturing sector there and maybe a more sophisticated consumer market, too.
Right.
And even the rest of Africa segment isn't, sluggish. It's showing a healthy 7.81% CAGR.
Still very high.
So if we kind of connect this to the bigger picture, these exceptionally high CAGRs in Asia Pacific and especially Africa, they really signal significant shifts, huge opportunities opening up in those developing economies, driven by things we talked about like more disposable income, e-commerce booming, rising demand for packaged goods, all that good stuff.
Fascinating dynamics. Okay, let's move on then to South America. Another pretty substantial market, right? About $747 million in 2021.
That's right, around $747 million in 2021, and it's expected to reach just over $1.1 billion by 2033. The CAGR there is 3.29%, so steady, but not quite the pace of APAC or Africa.
Still growing, though.
Oh, yes. And in South America, Brazil is clearly the dominant force. It has a 3.77% CAGR, reflects its large economy, its industrial base.
Big set.
Other countries in the region, Argentina's around 2.83% CAGR. Colombia's a bit higher, 3.88%. Peru at 2.66%. Chile at 3.04%. But it's worth pointing out that rest of South America category, it's projected to grow much slower, just 0.97% CAGR.
Oh, wow. That's quite a contrast to the continent's average.
It is. It really indicates that the growth isn't uniform across the board there. It seems highly concentrated in a few key nations.
Got it. Okay, and finally, the Middle East, another region showing pretty strong growth, I recall.
Yes, definitely. Starting from about $377 million in 2021.
Right.
And forecasted to reach nearly $655 million by 2033. That gives it a 4.65% CAGR. So stronger than Europe or North America, similar to Asia Pacific, actually.
Interesting comparison.
And within the Middle East, you see several key players pushing that growth. Saudi Arabia is at 4.75% CAGR. And the UAE shows an even higher rate, 5.14% CAGR. That's likely boosted by, its diversified economy, tourism, its role as a logistics hub.
Yeah, you can see that.
Qatar contributes with a 3.83% CAGR. Turkey's at 4.27%, and Egypt at 4.44%. And similar to some other regions, that rest of Middle East segment, it's actually showing the fastest growth within the region, 5.66% CAGR.
Another case of the rest outpacing the leaders.
Yeah.
Suggests broadening development.
Exactly. Suggests maybe new investment, new development spreading across the wider region there.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground, a lot of numbers, so let's try and synthesize this. What does this all mean for you, the listener, trying to get a quick handle on this? What are the big takeaways?
Well, I think the first big takeaway is just confirmation, really. The flexographic printing inks market is set for steady, consistent growth worldwide. It underlines its sort of foundational role in global industry. It's not going anywhere.
Right, it's essential.
But the core insight, I think, is this contrast. While those mature markets, Europe and North America, they keep expanding steadily, often tied to their existing industrial and consumer bases. It's really Asia Pacific and Africa that are showing the strongest momentum. Just undeniable acceleration there.
That's the key dynamic.
Yeah. Often these are the economies seeing that rapid urbanization, industrialization, the rise of the middle class we talked about. So if you're looking for, let's say, key hotspots, where are the future opportunities? The source data clearly points towards emerging economies like India, Taiwan, the UAE, and especially South Africa, simply because their CJR growth is projected to be exceptionally rapid.
Got it. The momentum is clearly shifting south and east, broadly speaking.
You could say that, yeah. Which, raises an important question.
Yep.
And that is a perfect place to pause and reflect. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We really hope you've gained a quick and clear picture of these global market dynamics. It can seem complex, but hopefully that broke it down. Now, as you go about your day, maybe you see a label on some packaging or, the print on a shipping box. Just take a second. Consider what's driving this growth. We've talked about this widespread, yet really regionally varied, expansion in flexographic inks. Like, what specific industries rely on these inks? Are they growing in parallel? What kind of printing applications are booming? And when you think about the underlying trends, consumer trends, industrial trends, driving it differently across all these diverse places globally. Something to keep in mind as you see all that print out there in the world.